Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel. We're getting into our second segment of the night, talking about Eastern Conference draft grades. But before I get into that, if you guys have any, or if you guys want to support the GSMC Podcast Network in more ways than you already do just by commenting and being here, use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. It goes a long way to support the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network. And with that being said, we're going to get right into talking draft grades here. Eastern Conference is the first up, and we're going to get right into this because there is 16 teams to talk about. The Boston Bruins are the first one. We're going alphabetically by location, as that's the best way to do it in my head. So I have the Boston Bruins at a D+. They didn't have that many picks. They had 4 picks all draft, and their first pick was Dean Latorno, who I thought was a reach. He's a 6'7" center. He's not that skilled. You're getting him for his size, and I just don't know how many centers that are 6'7" have really turned out to be worth a first rounder in the NHL. So I have the Boston Bruins at a D+. I didn't love their draft, but they didn't have that many picks. I thought that there were better options at that 25th spot for the Boston Bruins. I thought EJ Emery could have gone there. I think Ryder Ritchie could have gone there, but they get a D+ for that. The next up, Buffalo Sabres. I gave them a C. I like Constantinius for a late first rounder. I think 14th overall is a little bit of a reach. It makes sense that they traded back with the Sharks, I think it was, dropping from 11 to 14. I like that they traded back to get Constantinius, but I think that it still is a reach either way at 14. I had him at a late first round grade. And then down the board, I like Adam Kleber. I think that adds a lot of size to their blue line. But other than that, I don't think that there's really too much to talk about in this draft. So they just get a C. They just average. I mean, it's not a bad draft, but I think it's a little bit of a reach in the first round when I thought that there were better players available at 14th overall, and Adam Kleber is a good pick in the second round. Next up, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. B+ for Carolina. They had a good draft with what was really dealt to them. They didn't have a first round pick, and you'll see in my draft grades that teams without a first round pick, I didn't really give them over a B-, maybe a C for. However, the Carolina Hurricanes made the most of it. They had the 34th overall pick, which is only the third pick in the second round, or the second pick in the second round, and they get Dominic Badinka, who is a fantastic defenseman. I had a first round grade on him. I think that was a fantastic pick. And Nikita Artemonov was a fantastic left wing as well. That is a fast Russian prospect that played pretty well in the NHL this past season. And then Noel Franzen is a great defenseman as well. I really like the first 3 picks in their draft. And then down the board, they get a lot of guys, which in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th round, getting quantity over quality maybe is a good way to go about it, because you never know who can develop, who can grow, and who can surprise you. So I had the Canes at a B+. I really like their draft. Columbus coming in at an A-. They had a lot of offers for the 4th overall pick, and I think it would have been an A and an A+ if I didn't know that. They tried to get a Martin Necas deal done. I think they tried to do that on draft day, but they couldn't sign Martin Necas. He didn't want to go to Columbus, so unable to make that trade. Turned down a Chicago Blackhawks package that was a lot. But they stick and pick Caden Lindstrom, who is a fantastic center. He was my second forward on the board. I had him over Ivan Demidov, and he does go over Ivan Demidov. But I think that it adds sides to the blue line for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think now when you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets center core with Adam Fantilli, Cole Sillinger, Caden Lindstrom, you have Dmitry Voronkov, Sean Monahan. I think they're set for center for many years. They're big there. They're skilled players with Adam Fantilli and Sean Monahan. I think it is a fantastic addition with Caden Lindstrom. And then they really emphasize size in the rest of their draft. Going second round, Charlie Elick, one of the bigger defensemen on the board early in the second round, 6'4" defenseman from the Brandon Wheat Kings, who is still very quality. more of a defensive defenseman, though. Gets a undersized goalie in Evan Gardner, but I think that he was one of the best goalies in the dub last season. And then just down the board, getting 6'2", 6'4", 6'7" defenseman as well. I think it's a good draft from the Blue Jackets. They get an A-. I think it's an A if I didn't know about the Martin Necas fall-through deal, though. Next, on to the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings got a B- from me. I gave them a B- because honestly, it's a good draft, but I think that it's just kind of an average draft. Totally agree with the Sens grade. Should have taken Byam. Good coverage on the draft. Thank you so much. And yeah, Ottawa Senators, I gave them an F. It's not a good draft from them. I'll skip ahead and talk about it. Carter Yakimchuk's a bad pick. I gave them an F kind of solely on that. They also didn't have that many picks to the top end of the draft. I didn't like Gabriel Eliasson either. It's a 6'7". It's a 6'7" defenseman, but I just don't see the skill in his game. He's not a great skater. I did a little bit of coverage on him, and I didn't like him too much. But Carter Yakimchuk, I had him, I think, around 20th overall. I think that's an entire reach. With Z Byam still on the board, with Sam Dickinson still on the board, going for Carter Yakimchuk, I think it's bad. So that's why I give the Senators an F. But going back up to where I was, I think I was at the Panthers. C- I give the Panthers. They don't have a pick until the second round. They get Linus Eriksson, who I think might end up being a little bit of a reach just because of his combine results. He was like top 10 in every combine category, which made him fly up boards, but I just don't like him too much as a prospect other than that. And then down the board, they don't really get too many pieces that move me all too much. Next, it is the Montreal Canadiens. They get A+. This is a fantastic draft. I mean, I think this might be the only A+ I gave out. I think maybe them and the Sharks I might have also given an A+ to. But Canadians get an A+. Ivan Demidov is skill-wise the best player in this draft. I don't know if you can really argue with that. I think he's more skillful than Macklin Celebrini or Caden Lindstrom as forwards. I think the other two add to the game in other ways than Demidov. I don't see him too well as a defensive forward, but I think he adds so much to a Montreal Canadiens core that you can really see what they're growing with Yorav Slavkovsky, especially since they gave him that big contract today. They really like this core going forward. It's young. I think it's talented with also David Reinbacher on the back end. They also get Michael Haig out of Chicago of the USHL, the Chicago Steel player. Fantastic player. I really like Michael Haig. He's going to Michigan this next season. I think that could end up being a big steal. He's so skilled. I saw a lot of him in the USHL. He looked fantastic. And they also get Atos Koivu, who I believe is Sako Koivu's son, I think it's Sako Koivu's son. That's a fantastic pick as well. And then just down the board, I think that they had a lot of picks that they could have gotten steals with as well, with 6'4" right wing Tyler Thorpe. That looks like it's going to be a fantastic power forward for them. So down the board, I think the Canadians did a good job. A+ for them. The New Jersey Devils are next up. I gave them an A-. I love Anton Silyev, and I think that might be the Senators also passed on Silyev also. They go Carter Yakimchuk with Silyev, Byam, and Sam Dickinson on the board still. That's awful. But anyways, I love Anton Silyev. That's a 6'7" defenseman that can skate very well, plays his body very well. I think he is going to be a fantastic defenseman in the NHL. Really, of that Zdeno Chara kind of feel to him. Not too much offensively, but has a very strong shot, and he is a fantastic defensive defenseman. And then down the board, I like Michael Yegorov. He was my number one goalie in the draft. Kasper Pikkarainen was also a fantastic right wing pick in the third round. So the Devils get an A-. New York Islanders is the next team. They get a B. I think Cole Eiserman was a fantastic pick. But other than that, I don't think that they did too well. Jesse Pulkkinen wasn't too high up on my board, getting him in the second round. And then Kamil Bednarik, I didn't do too much scouting on, as I kind of forgot to watch him when I was watching my USA National Team Development Program development program film or videos that I do watch. So I don't know too much on Camille Bednarik, but the top 2 picks was good, and then meh. So they end up with a B, which is a good grade. They had a good draft, but I don't know how much it pushes them in the direction they want to go into. I think the Islanders are going to be that... gonna be in the bottom tier of the Metro next season. I think it's gonna be them, the Blue Jackets, and maybe it might just be them and the Blue Jackets, because I think the other 6 Metro teams are fantastic. But yeah, they get a B. The Rangers are the next team. They get a C plus. EJ Emery was a fantastic pick, and I think it would have been, if they don't get EJ Emery, it's an F. They have only 3 other picks in the entire draft. They're late round picks. We don't know too much on them. So, but EJ Emery is a good pick. They end up with a C plus just because of that. But one guy does not make a draft. Philadelphia Flyers, they get a D minus here. Jet Lushenko was an absolute reach. I think that Jet Lushenko should not have gone 13th overall. I think I had him at 28th, if I'm not mistaken. So I still had a first-round grade on him, but not 13th overall, especially with, other guys on the board that I like Michael Branstad-Gord, Konsta Helenius. I think I would have taken over Jet Lushenko, but we'll see how that pans out. The Flyers got Matvei Minchakov to an entry-level contract today, which... their team is looking very good, so they didn't need a good draft, is kind of my point there. I think that this team's going to be fantastic, and Matvei Minchakov could really slot on their first line if they really need him to. He's that good. Moving on from the Flyers to the Pittsburgh Penguins, they get a C. They didn't... Tanner Howe, Harrison Brunick, they get a C. This is kind of just... we'll see in a few years type of draft. They don't have a first round pick, so can't really put them higher than this. Just moving on quickly from the Pens. The Lightning get an F. The Lightning get an F because they have their first pick was in the 4th round. That's just solely why they got an F. I think that they could have gotten some good picks in the 4th and later. However, I just don't know if I'm going to be quite honest here. Just haven't really seen the players too much. Next up, just going quickly through them because I don't think that their draft will really move the needle for many years. Probably 4 or 5 years is when we'll really be able to tell on the Lightning's draft. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I gave them a C-. Their draft was the draft started at 31st overall with Ben Danford, which clearly was a guy that they really liked, but they didn't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick. I really like Sam McHugh in the 7th round. I saw a lot of him on the Owen Sound in the game I did watch of the Owen Sound. So I like Sam McHugh. I think I start him. He goes in the 7th round. That could be a steal. So they get a C- because I don't know too much on Ben Danford. But I do like Sam McHugh but it's in the 7th round. So how much can that really move the needle? And then Washington Capitals get an A because of 2 picks that I had it in the top half of the draft. They get at 17th overall and Tarek Parasik, who is a fantastic winger from Prince George, and then Cole Hudson, who drops all the way down to 43rd. I had him in the 1st round. I think I had him 20 in the 1st round. I think Cole Hudson was a fantastic defenseman. He is 165 pounds, 5'11", so maybe a little bit undersized, but very skilled and very good skating. I think that that's going to be a fantastic pick for the Capitals, and we're going to look back on that as a little bit of a steal. But that'll wrap it up for this Eastern Conference draft grades. Those are the teams that I think did the best and the teams that I think did the worst. Next, we're going to go on to the Western Conference side of things, talk about their drafts, give out grades, and after I come back from my second break.